My experience with chiropractic is a very positive one. I grew up near Stanford campus, so I'd only been really taught or around traditional physicians who I have great respect for. Really, they're among the different silos of health and wellness. But some time ago, I hurt my back. I had somewhere around L3, L4 compression from lifting. I've got a shoulder that sits a little bit lower than the other, and my dad's got it too, so who knows what the origins are. But I hurt my back badly enough. I was up in Seattle, I'd done a workout that morning, and I couldn't even walk. Like, by the end of the morning, I was in that C-shaped position. I was supposed to go up to give a talk in the Space Needle and could not move. I've had it happen before, and I thought, okay, this will resolve, and it didn't resolve. I actually had to stay up there quite a bit longer than originally intended. So I was all set, basically, so fast forward, to have surgery on this thing. I was told I needed surgery. But then I recalled that the kid that worked on the lab bench across from me as a postdoc, this Canadian guy, was always complaining about his back. And I thought, this is really sad. Like, we're in our 30s. At this point, I was in my 40s. And I thought, like, why is this happening? This can't be. And believe it or not, I saw a social media post from a chiropractor. And the social media post described the sort of anatomy of the back, the trajectory of the spinal cord, the exit of the nerve roots, and I teach neuroanatomy to medical students, so that all checked out. But then it proceeded to educate me on some of the ways that the nerves could be impinged and ways that they could potentially become unimpinged by manipulating the mechanics around that disc, essentially by doing more or less kind of up dog type push-ups. But that alone was too painful, and so I contacted this person, and they actually had me, put my hands on the wall, do this sort of I'm not going to demonstrate it because it looks, somewhat inappropriate for a crowd. But and then what happened was it started to feel better, and so then I saw a chiropractor who encouraged me to do more of this and did some adjustments, and within 4 days or so, I was back to deadlifting, squatting, running, and doing all of my standard activities, feeling better than I ever had before. And this has gone out a few times before. Okay, that's just part of the story, because that's a one-off. But then what happened was that my stepmother, I have a very international family, South Americans, Guatemalans, Scandinavians, Americans, the whole, we're like, it's like the world tour. So my stepmom hurt her back very badly, and they were gonna put her into surgery, and she was taking a lot of anti-inflammatory medication that was causing its own set of effects. She took a bunch of meds and went back to Denmark for summer to visit her family. And I kept telling her to do what I did because, or at least be seen by a chiropractor. And she's like, well, chiropractors, this kind of thing, because it's kind of like standard, grew up near Stanford campus. I'm not going to say it's a wonderful place, but we're sort of taught to think where I grew up that, it's only the kind of standard medicine that you would get through a university hospital or hospitals, the type to pay attention to. And so she goes back to Denmark, where of course they have great medical coverage. She goes in and sees her standard physician, who essentially gives her the same set of maneuvers / exercises to do for her back, and suggests that she see what is their equivalent of a chiropractor. And within about a week or so, her issue had resolved and she'd been in excruciating pain. And she called me saying, this is wild, when you leave the United States, the whole perception of how to fix an issue related to pain is completely different. And I can add one other little quick piece to this, which is that a gentleman's been on our podcast before. He's a director of our pain medicine at Stanford, Dr. Sean Mackey, and he's the one who's really one of many who's been a proponent of the so-called biopsychosocial model of pain, which incorporates the emotional response. Of course, they sometimes will incorporate meds and things of that sort, surgery. But he very much also, I've spoken to him several times, believes in this idea that there are avenues through chiropractic that can be incredibly powerful. So I think for me, as a 49-year-old who has been interested in health and fitness for a long time, and also science and medicine for a long time, I think we are in the midst of a sea change around how we view chiropractic as well as acupuncture, a separate issue, but just to mention that. And just this whole notion of how to relieve pain, how to build structure that is really solid, and how to the most important thing I think here is to give people a sense of agency so that if they're willing to put in a small amount of work or perhaps a large amount of work, to really give them the options for their own treatment. And my back feels great, although now I'm reminded I need to sit up taller as I say that. So an incredibly positive experience for me, for my stepmom, and I pass that story along whenever I get the opportunity, because I think that, again, having been involved in health and wellness and fitness and science and medicine for a long time, having grown up in the midst of it, it's very clear that things that 10 years ago, breath work, meditation, acupuncture, for instance, chiropractic, these silos are starting to move closer together, in no small part thanks to gatherings like this. And if I may, even in no small part to social media, which puts people with common interests, common hashtags, in the same environment where they start exchanging information. At first they tend to kind of rub up against one another with a little bit of friction, but I think when you get these hybrid approaches is really when the silos start to blend together. And I think it's an incredibly exciting time for all aspects of health, wellness, and it's something to keep in mind, I think, regardless of whether or not you're interested in the mind, the body, or both, that there's really no one way. There's just multiple lenses to the same issue. And really the basis of my podcast is to try and look at all of the things that we think are relevant through these different lenses and find out where the common paths are, regardless of the nomenclature used. But yeah, I have a tremendously positive experience of chiropractic medicine, and I still go get adjusted now and again.